What's up, everybody? So, we're back again. This is the day after the comp. I did win. I got 2 first place, so Bandit and let's see here, what was the other one that I entered into? Twister No Wall. So yes, I did get, first place in both those classes. I tried Port Wars, got 4th in Port Wars, so I couldn't try to get up any higher than that. I got like a 163, I think. It's like a 163 something in there. But other than that, yeah, I got some good news and some good news. So I'm gonna make this a little easier for myself and for the audience to follow. I let some of the people that are my friends and stuff like that know before I'm letting you guys know what I'm doing. So this is gonna stay a stock battery when I'm done with it. I'm going to cut off the zip ties that are in here that are holding up these wires, right? So these wires are gonna now get rerouted over to right here, and this plate that's up here, that actually is the holder for part of the alternator, and it's also the holder for the power steering reservoir, I guess, or top to the reservoir, because I don't think the reservoir's up here. I think this is just like a filler neck, and the reservoir is actually down further. That'll get sorted out. Don't know if I'm gonna go to the Volvo electronic over hydraulic yet or not. If I can find one for pretty cheap and give it a shot and try it, sure. Because I think I have to have special lines made for it. So if I do, then it's gonna cost too much to do that. Then I'm just gonna wing it and just basically fill up the power steering rack with fluid. And then we'll just take the one line and loop it to the secondary line. And then that way, then it's just pushing fluid back and forth between itself. So it'll act like a semi-power steering instead of like not power steering at all and just drained and just having a dry rack in there. Because, then it's not really difficult to steer with no power steering and the small steering wheel. So it'll be somewhat there. It just won't be assisted. So it'll still have pressure in it, and it'll still be able to kind of like move the fluid back and forth and stuff. Hopefully that works out that way. If not, then I'll just go figure out how to do that electronic over hydraulic Volvo pump from like the 1999 or 2000 Volvos. I think they had those. Maybe it was newer than that. Maybe it was like a 2003. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to look it up. I know it's in my cart. So I did find one, a used one, and I put it in my cart. So I have that. Anyways, then this is gonna get mounted. This is where the alternator is going to get mounted because it's all below here. So if I get that alternator and put it in here, I will find myself like at least a decent like 400 amp, or if I can go higher and get like a 500 amp like big case alternator. I will do that. I will put that right there and have it welded to here so that it's just permanently part of that fixture. Either that or make some tabs that come up and weld the tabs to this, and then just run bolts through there to hold that in place. Don't know about the upper bracket part because obviously there's some relays and stuff right there, so I can't really come off of anything. This is the computer, this is the relays and stuff, so there's metal right here, but if I can move these out of the way temporarily and then build a bracket and weld the bracket to here and then come off and come down and kind of zigzag it type of thing, like make a little curve to it, and then I can have that top bolt, so that top bolt bolts in there too, and then just put a bolt through and a nut through, washer on both sides, and suck it down basically so it will hold that to that plate. That plate is going to become essential for basically what I'm trying to do, and I'm going to leave the stock alternator in there right now, and then I'm going to run the secondary alt back to the back end and then have that set up so where it's just a standalone setup. So the secondary alt will feed to the back and power everything inside the back. And that way then it's easier for me because I just run these wires and shorten them, attach them to the stud, and there you go. Now it's running I just have to extend that belt too, I think, get a little slightly longer belt. And then it'll be, I have to figure out that belt loop too, I guess, up there. Anyways, yeah, then it'll be a standalone alternator for the back, and stock alt stays running that. I'll get rid of this battery that's up here. This is my cousin's battery. It is kind of half there. It's kind of it holds charge for a while. Then if you leave it over time, it'll just kind of slowly die, and then you throw it on a charger and it'll charge up and it'll hold charge for a while. If you were using it and driving with it, it probably wouldn't be so bad. I do have a new battery over there though. That's a die-hard that I'm gonna stick in here. And then the only thing that the front battery will be doing is just the normal system stuff like for the vehicle. And then I'll have the 4-channel and the 2-channel hooked up to it because I have the one run of 4-aught right here that's going back to that splitter that's in the back, and this will just be running off of here. So the 4-channel and the 2-channel will be the only ones that are running off the front battery system, and that should be able to handle that no problem. It's when it comes to the bigger stuff that's a bigger issue. So we'll end up getting these zip ties cut off, and I'm just going to move all the cord stuff over there and get that prepped up for right now. And then I don't know, we'll go forward. I'll end up buying the alt, I think, coming up here soon, and then figuring out how to install that, get that set up. Hey everybody, so yeah, we're back now. I got it straightened up. So I took out that wiring and just kind of moved it back. I ended up putting it over here. So then it's all still zip tied real nice back there, and it's all coming out of the firewall directly up across that. I think that's an AC line. And then you can still reach the valve if you need to like charge it or whatever. And then this will just loop in directly. We'll have that cut down. We'll have to probably trim it down some more before we put the lug on it. And then depending on where that sits for the alternator, then the lug will match up to it and we should be able to have it. But we'll have to probably trim it back some. I didn't want to cut too much off right now. I'll wait until that time when actually get the alt set up over there, and then we'll figure it out from there, I guess. This is basically the general area of where it's going to sit. I kind of want it sit it directly in line with the other one, and then we'll see how it works out for positioning with that belt. If I have to, I'll see if I can get a belt tensioner, drill a hole. There's already a hole here, actually. Huh, interesting. And then just slide it on there, come out some with it, like put a collar on there, slide the bolt through, so it'll have the tensioner on there. And then I can loop that underneath there or whatever I have to do in order to come back down. But that is something else for an entirely different time. I just know that it's going to have to line up with that, so we'll have to build a plate that'll allow it to come out to where that's all in line. But that's not on me to build the plate, that's on my neighbor. So he's already agreed to help me with it. He does like mechanics work and welding and stuff like that, and he said, yeah, we'll get it figured out and go from there. So luckily this thing does run and drive, so I could just slap the negative back on it, because I have that disconnect in here because I still have that slow creep draw. Don't know where it's coming from, but it's not that significant. I just don't know honestly where it's feeding from or coming from, so I'll just leave it for now, and when I start driving it and stuff like that, it probably won't even be noticeable. And I don't want to go through there and just test every single thing, so I'm not too worried about it. I don't really care either way. I could take my rear defrost fuse out, I guess, maybe that could be it, because since I took off the setup, maybe there was something that makes this continually kind of just be there. I don't know, it's not on right now obviously because there's no power, but I never thought about feeling that back glass to see if it's getting warm back there, but maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Do I have it? Yeah, I have my defrost buttons right there, but there was a rear windshield wiper thing that ran through here and for the sprayer and the windshield wiper. I took that out to put a voltmeter in here, so the wiring's just sitting back there, but I modified the housing for this for the ABS plastic on that. So normal switch ain't gonna fit back in there. It's not just gonna be like, oh yeah, we're slide right back in like normal. Thing's heavily modified on the back end. So if I had to, I'd have to hook the switch up and bury it in the dash. Depending on how extreme this thing really is, there might not be a dash anymore, because maybe I might just go through and just take out the original factory dash and just build my own dash out of either wood or metal, and just delete the whole dash, leave the steering column in place, get rid of the dash, and I'll probably figure out a way, if I do make it out of wood, to integrate the stock cluster. Otherwise, I'll have to figure out the wiring diagram and then wire in some electronic gauges for the speedometer, RPM, fuel, and oil, and all that stuff. And then probably like a digital, like Dakota digital gauge set or something like that, and just put it in there. Something kind of cheap but easy to work with. And Dakota Digital might even just make a plug and play harness, so you get the little gauges from them, you hook up the gauges to their harness, and then it just adapts and plugs directly into the factory connector for the Dodge. So I could always find something like that too, so it makes it a little easier for me anyways. But then all of that dash stuff would just be gone. I would drill out holes for the 5 1/4 that would be for the dash still up there when I make the dash assembly. But that's getting a little bit more involved in it. So for right now, we'll see how it holds up and how extreme this thing really is when I get done with it. Like I said, if I have to, then I'll build out the other dash. If I don't have to, I don't want to, so I won't build out that other dash then. I'll just leave it till it starts breaking apart and falling apart and all that other stuff. Then we'll figure it out from there. If the door panels start breaking apart and falling apart too, then I might have somebody build me some door panels out of like plywood and stain them and make them look nice and stuff. And then I'll go through and add different speakers and tweeters and all that stuff to it as well. More than likely, I won't do any super tweeters inside of that cabin space because I don't give a shit to have my ears bleeding. I'll probably just do a lot of mid-range or like mid-bass, like mid-range and mid-bass, like a mixture of the two, because mid-range hits that higher frequency. So it does have some high sounds to it, like these 10s, for example. But then that's a mid-bass because that doesn't have the center cap to it and it can actually hit the lows better. The DS18s are mid-bass as well, but those are 5 1/4, those are 6 1/2. If I did this setup and utilized what's left here, I'd probably put the 10 back in there, and then I would figure out the crossover stage on that, mount the crossover someplace else if I redid the dash and redid the doors. And then I would actually do it as like an 8-inch mid-bass or a 10-inch mid-bass. And then probably be a 10, an 8, and then I'd probably do like 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2 type of thing. So then it'd be all set up in there differently. So be the 12. If I remember right, I think that's 12. Might be 10. So 10-inch mid-range, 10-inch mid-bass, 8-inch mid-bass, 6 1/2-inch mid-bass, 6 1/2-inch mid-bass, 6 1/2-inch mid-bass. Then I would take this and have this put to the top. So you'd lift up to be able to actually open it. This would all just be shaved out. The switch would get moved up into here too for the window, or for the lock, sorry. And then the window switches and all that stuff would get moved up here as well too. And then there'd be just like a slot that would be dug in or cut in that would end up being able to grab it. So you can shut the door and then you just lift up here, be able to open the door and shove it open. Either that or put it on poppers. But a lot of people have problems with poppers disconnecting or from the base or something occurring with that. Or it jiggles it loose, or the armature doesn't work, or it shorts out the relay, or who knows. There's just a lot of stuff that can go wrong with those poppers, especially in the extreme stuff. So we just won't go that route, mechanical or nothing, right? I got to get a breather for here. I might look into getting an actual like cone setup for this, like a tube. With a smaller filter. That 5-inch filter, this car does not like having that much air coming into it. So I'll have to, sorry, my ear itches. So I'll have to minimize that cone down. Otherwise, starting this thing is kind of a bitch because it doesn't want to idle. It doesn't want to run right. It kind of runs a little rough because it's collecting way too much air versus how much fuel it's putting out. And this is before all that whole computer stuff can map stuff out and tell it what to do. So I don't even know. I don't even think there's a mass airflow sensor in this thing. I think there's the idle control valve and there's a throttle position sensor. So that'd be like here, throttle position sensor, idle control valve down there. That's about it. Then everything else is just kind of, you have to do it yourself. There should be a fuel mixture screw somewhere. Here's a fuel pressure regulator. But the computer either tells it what to do by the fuel pressure regulator or something. There's got to be a way in there with that fuel rail system to be able to do it. I'm assuming that it's by the computer, because there is literally nothing over here and I don't see any type of mass airflow sensor. There is vacuum here. So if you end up with a vacuum leak through these hoses that goes down here, it comes off the fuel pressure regulator and it goes over here, it hits a T, goes up, part of it goes down and goes back up here to another sensor or another dampener. yeah, then it's just whatever it is. It ends up being, this is just open back here. I don't know how that ended up. So now I got to fix that. This hose kind of popped off. Let me set you guys up and I'll fix that real quick. And then we can get back to it. But yeah, so I am going to end up having this thing set up pretty soon as a standalone. As long as I can make sure I don't have any vacuum leaks and stuff, that'd be great, you know. There's another vacuum line off here that's been teed and capped. Don't know what that goes to. Looks like it's done from the factory. There's so much that can go wrong with vacuum leaks. I just don't like having all this stuff. I like having old vehicles, but I don't like having stuff that can end up having issues with it. You know what I mean? Like if I can go back to carbureted 1970s, 1960s stuff, even some carbureted stuff in the 80s, like before all the vacuum lines and all the bullshit, be fine. I think I'd be pretty happy. But I don't like most all the stuff that they have available. The only thing I'd like out of that would probably be like maybe one of the Jeeps that they had back then. Jeep Wranglers. I think they were from like the 1980s. Also, they had some 70s ones that look pretty cool too. Maybe a Nomad. Let's see here. A couple wagons. They might look pretty cool. Old school, like, I don't know what you'd call them. Like a panel van type of thing. Just straight old school 1970s or 60s panel van. Dodge would be a nice one if I could find a Dodge van like that. But then I wouldn't want to wreck it. If it looked nice, I probably want to turn it into like a camper van or keep it how it originally was with the whole setup. You come into some of these older vans from the 60s or 70s, and they had, especially from the 70s, and they'd have like a whole damn living room set up here, and then they'd have it walled off, and they'd have like a little hole that you could crawl through, and there's your bed. They had a full fucking bed back there, like a full size, you know, or somewhere between a full and a twin, but most likely it was like a full size mattress back there. And then had shag carpet everywhere. Fucking some of them had chandeliers in them, you know. And they have speakers and stuff in there, so you could be jamming. So they'd have this like a living room set up here with like a little mini couch and stuff, and like your little table that would pop up. The passenger seat would swivel or be able to spin around, and then you'd have like speakers up in there for your rear speakers, and then you'd have your front speakers in your doors, and then you'd have your stereo up here in your driver's compartment and stuff. I mean, those vans were freaking decked out, and they had the little circle windows in the back, the little fish bowls. So you still had, you know, light coming in. Sure enough, they were tinted and stuff, but hey, why not? You know, I think if I got something like that, I'd probably still go with like the same 70s theme style, and I'd do like the, you know, whatever it is, the Rainbow Galaxy shit with a unicorn jumping through a fucking hoop full of flames or some crazy bullshit that they do on the sides of those vans. Like, I don't know, I've seen some lowrider vans that were super crazy artwork and shit on the sides of them. So just do something crazy, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, if I had that van, I don't think I'd turn it into a sound van. Got this, we're good with that. Maybe an Astro van for the next one? I don't know. We'll figure something out. I found some pretty cool drop-in stuff that I'd like to do for like a straight up just a slide-in build. That may be a thing, but I think my next build's gonna be a blow-through. Just find myself like a mini truck, like just an old Dodge Dakota, like a 1999, 1998 Dodge Dakota single cab, and put a blow-through in there, and then put a really good water seal on it and do a tonneau cover, like a fold back tonneau cover, so I can be able to fold it back and get in there. Either that or one of the old full-on fiberglass tonneau cover drop downs. but make sure that it's good and weatherproofed. And then I'll build the box and make it into a blow through. I'll put the amps inside of behind the seat, since it is just a single cab and not an extended cab or anything like that. I would do 1 amp on each side of the blow through, and then I probably try to do the batteries and stuff in the back using waterproof grommets to run the wires through and all that stuff, and then have the subs in the back, and then have it just, the subs would probably be laid out, probably like 415s or something like that, and then have the port so it goes into the box, but also I need enough port depth into the cab to be able to create the edge, and then I'd still bolt it down. I would just have it just resting there. I'd bolt it, but I would leave it like loose, or have like rubber bushings put into it so that when you're moving, because the cab and the box move separately, that it's able to move a little bit and rotate a little bit without, if you bolted it down, it would obviously break the wood. But I'd still want to make it capped off and then have like that actual normal waterproof rubber grommet from an RV that would go through there from one side to the other side. Bolt that down properly, because that holds the rubber. When the rubber flexes and is able to move, that little rubber skirting that goes between the cab and the box, that'll cover over the top of the actual port that goes through there. I wouldn't necessarily, I guess, have the port bolted down. I would just make it go through so it stuck out about like that bar, like in past that setup for the pass through. Then after that, I'd have enough of it to where it went into the box. So whatever comes through, so if I got, 12 inches of port that has to go outside of that box and goes through the cab and the bed and back into the box itself, we'll say, 8 to 12 inches. I don't know, I'm guessing. Then you have to take that into account, because that's going to be part of your port, or it will be the whole port, depending on how you want your tuning to be done. You may have only 2 or 3 inches into the actual box that's normal port going into the box. Everything else might be just going into the cab, so you may not actually have to build that big. Otherwise, it might be 8 and 6 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Just to get your port depth correct for it, and then you go from there. So blow through maybe in my future. Get this done, roll with this for a little while. We'll see how it goes. It may or may not happen, but I'd like to do something like that. That thing, old school system, just because I don't really want anything loud in it. So my cousin's got some sound quality subs, some old Rockford SQ subs. So they're audiophile, single 8 ohm each one. We'll wire it into 4 ohm and put it on a little 300 watt Urban Audio Works, and we'll slap it in there. And I'll just run one run of 8 gauge from the front underneath the carpet to the back, wire it up real nice, build a little amp rack for the Urban Audio Works to kind of show it off, have everything set up inside there. It has 2 volts of deck power off of it. So I think I'll just run it with the 2 volts. We'll see where we end up, because I don't think that the Urban Audio Works can take that high of input into the input board on that. I'll have to look around online and see if I can get any info for that, because that's pretty old school. So I think the Urban Audio Works dropped in like 1996, something like that. So we'll have to see what the input power rating is on that, because I don't want to fry the input board on it. That would just be some shitty luck. Otherwise, I would do an LC1I, use it as a line driver in the back end, have the RCAs coming off the deck, LC1i as a line driver right into there, displaying the LC1i, displaying the amp, and the nice audiophile Rockfords in the back. So we'll see how it goes. Not 100% sure on how I'm doing that yet. May do a fiberglass box for them, but we'll see. Or maybe I could do each individual bass tube, but I think the audiophiles sounded better in sealed, and I like the sealed enclosure better anyways, especially for that one, because that one's just going to become like just a cruiser vehicle. It's going to become my daily driver and stuff like that once I get most of the stuff worked out on it and get everything done. That way I can put more work into the wagon. Otherwise, I'm going to sell the wagon off, use the funding from the wagon to finish this build off, and then I'll buy a different car later on, something like that. So my stuff changes all the time. So, all right, anyways, catch you guys in the next one.